Our story begins with a Redditor, who we'll call Mike. Mike was an outdoorsy kind of guy, someone who enjoyed long hikes to clear his mind. One weekend, he decided to try a new trail that was a little off the beaten path, deep into the woods where he could enjoy the quiet and solitude. As Mike walked through the thick forest, something caught his eye. Lying half buried under some leaves was an old weathered smartphone. It looked like it had been there for a while, scratched up, dirty, and clearly dead. Curious, he picked it up and examined it. There was no sign of who it belonged to, and no reception in that remote part of the woods, so he figured he'd bring it home and see if it still worked. When Mike got home, he cleaned off the phone and plugged it in. To his surprise, the phone powered up. The screen flickered to life, but it was locked with no obvious clues about who it belonged to. Just as he was about to put it down and forget about it, the phone rang. The sound startled him. The caller ID was just a string of random numbers, no name, no familiar area code. Mike hesitated for a moment, but figured he'd answer, thinking maybe it was the phone's owner calling to track it down. "Hello?" Mike said into the phone. At first there was nothing but static on the other end, and then a voice, distorted, crackling, but unmistakably human, came through. "I see you found it," the voice said. Mike's stomach tightened. "Found what?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "The phone," the voice replied, sounding almost amused. "You shouldn't have taken it." Mike felt a chill run down his spine. How did this person know he had the phone? He quickly glanced around the room, as if expecting someone to be watching him. "Who is this?" he demanded. But the line had gone dead. Shaken, Mike turned the phone off and left it on the kitchen counter. He told himself it was just some weird prank and tried to brush it off. But the uneasy feeling lingered. He couldn't stop thinking about that strange voice and how it seemed to know he'd found the phone. Later that night, as Mike was getting ready for bed, the phone rang again. The same string of random numbers appeared on the screen. This time, he didn't want to answer it, but something in the back of his mind pushed him to pick up. "Hello?" he said, his voice more nervous this time. The same crackling static, followed by the voice again. "You shouldn't have taken it, Mike." Mike froze. How did they know his name? "What do you want?" he stammered, his heart pounding in his chest. The voice chuckled, low and sinister. "You'll find out soon enough." Mike hung up immediately, his hands shaking. He quickly powered off the phone, but the unsettling feeling wouldn't leave him. Someone out there knew who he was, where he was, and had somehow linked him to this abandoned phone. Over the next few days, the calls kept coming. Even when the phone was turned off, it would ring. Mike tried everything, ignoring the calls, changing his own phone number, even throwing the old phone into the trash. But no matter what he did, the calls wouldn't stop. The voice became more aggressive, mocking him, telling him things that no one should know. It described his daily routine, the clothes he was wearing, even conversations he had with friends. It was as if someone was watching him every moment of the day, and there was nothing he could do to escape it. Finally, after one particularly terrifying call where the voice said it was getting closer, Mike decided he'd had enough. He took the phone and drove back to the woods where he'd found it. He hurled it as far as he could into the dense trees, hoping that getting rid of it would put an end to the nightmare. For a while, it seemed like it worked. The calls stopped and Mike's life returned to normal. But every now and then, when he's walking alone or sitting quietly at home, he swears he hears the faint sound of a phone ringing somewhere in the distance. And in those moments, he can't help but wonder, did he really get rid of it? Or is it still out there, waiting for someone else to pick up?